everybody, my name is Tanya and this is the last of my catch-up wrap-ups. This is everything that I read during the month of September. So I finished quite a number of things in September, but most of them were very short, and again I didn't read any physical novels. Most of what I finished was in audio form, and then 2 graphic novels which I read right at the start of the month, and that was it for my reading. So the graphic novels, I started with Saga Volume 6, and again, that one I usually borrow from the library, so that one has gone back. I still really love this series, really enjoyed this volume, it was great, and not all that much more to say than that. The second graphic novel has also gone back to the library, but that was Jane the Fox and Me by Fanny Britt, illustrated by Isabel Arsenault, and I first heard about this one from Mercedes from Mercedes Bookish Musings, and so I thought I would give it a go. This one is the story of a young girl named Helene who is being bullied at school. She's a bit overweight, she doesn't have any friends, and she kind of takes solace in the story of Jane Eyre. And so this was definitely a very touching graphic novel, and definitely a lot I could relate to in Helene's story, and it was lovely and I really enjoyed it, and I think quite important. Not too much more to say about it again at this kind of remove and without the book to show you, but I definitely would recommend giving that one a go. The next book I completed was an audiobook, and that was Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. This one I read as a buddy read with Ange from Beyond the Pages, and Yamini from Skeptical Reader, and Mercedes from Mercedes Bookish Musings, and Alicia from Ex Libris was there to talk about it as well, because she had recently read and enjoyed this one. This one is largely the story of Caroline Halston, despite the name, and we commented that it was quite interesting that this is called Shirley when she isn't actually really the main character, or it doesn't seem to be. We don't actually get introduced to Shirley a fair way into this. It's quite a significant chunk into the novel before Shirley even makes an appearance. I would still consider that Caroline is the true main character of this one. This is a story of the poor Caroline Halston and the very wealthy Shirley Kildare, and a neighbour of theirs, Robert Moore, who is running a mill. This one has a number of themes in common with North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell in terms of the Industrial Revolution and that resistance to change and the distrust of industry and mill owners and the tensions that creates, and so that's a very big part of this as well. And ultimately I really enjoyed this one. It wasn't my favourite. I think I settled on around 3.5 stars. This is my second novel by Charlotte Bronte after Jane Eyre, and the first of the Brontes that I've read that aren't like the big 3. So we've got Charlotte's Jane Eyre, Emily's Only Wuthering Heights, and Anne's Ten in a Wildflower Hall. I'd read all those 3, kind of the big 3 Brontes, but I hadn't read any of their lesser well-known works, so it was good to finally read another of those. There are definitely more that I have been interested in, and I have since read another by Anne Bronte, which I will talk about in my October wrap-up. Next up, the reason that I was able to finish so many things in the month of September is a series of audiobooks, and that is the original radio plays of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I listened to all 5 parts of the radio plays, the primary, secondary, tertiary, quandary, and quintessential phases. I have read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books at least a couple of times. I really love them. I consider Douglas Adams to be one of my favourites, but I never actually listened to the original radio play where it all came from. So I think from what I understand, the primary and tertiary phases came before the books, or at least were very close in tandem with the books. Certainly the first one, it started with the radio play and then that turned into the book, whereas the latter ones it's the other way around. So I think the 3rd, 4th and 5th books were written quite a ways prior to the radio plays being produced, I think in the early 2000s. So it was just wonderful being back in this world again. I've meant to do this for a very long time. Each of the audiobooks are only a few hours long, like it doesn't take very long at all, but it was an absolute joy, and so I listened to those in quick succession, just smiling the whole way. It was really great to hear it as it was originally intended, and with all of the sound effects that they were able to do. I did find occasionally that the sound effects around certain voices made it a little hard to understand in the early ones. Like I think the Vogue ones were quite difficult to understand, but in reality they probably were. So but this was a great way to experience a story that I'm so familiar with in a different way. Basically the storylines are identical, and it was just a pure joy. For those of you who don't know, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a story of Earthman Arthur Dent and what happens when one day the Earth is demolished to make way for a hyperspace bypass, and what happens after that point when he and a friend of his, who unknown to him is actually from another planet, manage to hitch a ride on the construction ships that are coming to demolish the Earth, unknown to the people, and the hijinks that go from there, and the ridiculous adventures, and it all makes no sense, and it's wonderful, and I love the way that Douglas Adams's brain works. It's just, I love this so much. So I was very pleased to finally get around to listening to the radio plays of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then the final thing that I completed in the month of September, again, was an audiobook, and that was Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. This is one that you will have seen a fair bit on Booktube. I'm a little bit behind the times, but I'm really glad that I finally got around to listening to this one, because I really actually quite enjoyed it. So I've heard some mixed things to do with this, some really good and some disappointments. I remember watching Sabrina from Unmanaged Mischief's review of this one, which I will find and link down below, and in that she recommended listening to the audio version, and I would definitely echo that. I think the audio version added a lot to the experience of reading this one, and I don't know that I would have got the same enjoyment out of reading the book as I did with listening to it, so I definitely think that's the way to go with this. As you've probably already heard, this is the story of a girl is riding out in the woods, and she falls down into a hole and is found sitting inside a large metal hand. And then many years later, this girl is now a scientist, and she is part of a team who's now investigating what this hand is and where it's come from, and whether there is the rest of a body out there. The story is largely told in interviews, where an unnamed interviewer is questioning various people involved in some way with the investigation around this metal hand, and it goes from there. I really enjoyed that way of telling it. Again, I don't think I would have enjoyed that in the reading so much as I did in the listening. Each character had a different narrator, so there was a narrator for the interviewer, and then each of the characters that he spoke to would have a different voice, so it's very easy to keep track of who everyone was and get a sense of them, I guess. And so because of that, I came to care quite strongly about some of the characters, whereas I think if it was just written interviews that I was reading, I maybe wouldn't have that such strong connection. So again, I would definitely recommend the audiobook as the way to go for this one. This is quite a quick and easy read. You know, maybe there's not a lot of depth to it, like it's just an enjoyment story, which is what I needed at the time I was listening to it, so it was an excellent choice. And again, that probably really added to my enjoyment of the overall story. I'm really intrigued to see where things go next. It is going to be a series, so I am very much looking forward to the next one. And again, I think I will be going the audiobook route. So that is everything that I finished during the month of September. Lots of audiobooks, lots of short audiobooks, quick and easy, and you know, not too difficult on the brain, which is exactly what I needed for the month. But if you have read some of these or have any questions about any of the things that I did read, let me know in the comments. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.